Hello there, everyone. I hope you've been doing well. It's been a while since my last video, as some exciting things in life have happened, and so I just haven't had the time to really make a video. But as we do our walk around of our beautiful Air New Zealand ATR 72-600 in the Pacific Wave teal livery, I'm going to kind of go over what we're doing today. So while I've been on my little hiatus from making videos, I've been reading on other YouTube videos, Reddit, Facebook, random groups, random places on the internet, that apparently a lot of people are unhappy with the ATR because apparently it has some issues. The issues I've been reading about are with hotel mode, not being able to do turns in the ATR, just a lot of small complaints about it. And quite frankly, I've never had this problem with the aircraft. And so I kind of want to just go over what we're doing. So we're going to do a turn today after we depart Wellington. We're going to do a turn in Nelson, head down to Christchurch. And just kind of show you that these issues, I guess I don't have them. I think a lot of it is people just not using the aircraft correctly. Which, I'm not a real pilot, but one person that helped me learn how to use this aircraft and get better at it is actually a real pilot on the ATR. That's the channel Flying with Magnar. He has made some great videos, and once again, he is a real ATR pilot. He's put out some great stuff about both the real aircraft and the aircraft in the sim. Even made a series of tutorial videos. So I would highly recommend checking out his channel. But what I'm going to show you is how I fly this aircraft. So it's going to be a little different than my Kodiak tutorial where I took like snippets from the actual checklist and put them in the video, because the ATR has a checklist system built into the screens in the cockpit, and we're going to go off those. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know what you think, and once we finish up this walk around, we are going to go ahead and start doing our flight planning for our way over to Nelson. So for those of you that are interested, now we're going to go over at least how I do flight planning for these flights. So we're going to start with leg number 1. And a couple links we're going to use is simbrief.com. And we're going to use FlightAware. And we're also going to use AIP.net.NZ. And we're also going to use Little Nav Map. So coming into SimBrief, we are going to create a new flight. Then we're going to be simulating an Air New Zealand flight, specifically flight 5315, which that is this flight right here. Typically this is flown by a Dash 8, but they actually have had a ATR on it, at least now scheduled twice. They've done it one other time on the 14th of October. And it goes from Welly to Nelson. And so that's one we're going to be pretending to fly today. So NZWN and NZNS. I already have an airframe saved for the ATR in SimBrief, so that's the one we're going to use. And now we're going to come down here and look at our weather for Wellington. It's currently winds are 010 at 10. For whatever reason, it thinks we should take off runway 16, but that's going to be way closer to runway 34. And then, well, this might be why it says becoming. From 1 to 3, becoming 180 at 8. Then this will go back to prevailing, and then we're going to go ahead and plan on a 3-4 departure. And we can't get a METAR out of Nelson, so we're just going to plan on the 02 arrival just because of the close proximity between the two. Probably have roughly the same winds. So let's change that to a 3-4. Yes. Leave passengers, altitude, freight, and payload in 0 fuel as auto. And then now for our suggested route. We'll go ahead and backspace that. And if we go to aip.net.nz, this is a real great website that will actually provide you all of your charts for just about every airport in New Zealand. If you know the exact document you want, you can use the tabs up here. I find it easier just to go to the airport charts down in the Browse By section. And then now we have a ton of airports. So we are going from Wellington to Nelson. So let's go down to Welly. So we're getting close. Wellington right there. So you can see we got arrivals, departures, RNAV, stars, the ILS, RNAV arrivals, ground movements, visual docking, instrument departures, all kinds of fun stuff. But what we are looking for is the standard route clearances. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. We also are going to want the SID for runway 34, pages 3 and 4. So looking at our standard route clearances, as you can see, it's broken down by airport. So like this is Auckland, Christchurch, and then NS would be Nelson. So this is the one we want. We're planning on a runway 34 departure, so we want to go to Nulco to Q235. And for whatever reason, SimBrief does not have the departure that I want to fly in it. And the departure we want to fly is this one right here. So runway 34, going up to Ganji, then we'll turn, fly this way, and then get to Nulco like that. But for whatever reason, it is not in SimBrief, so we're actually just going to pull that off to the side and go back into this tab, SimBrief. We're going to enter the waypoints in manually just to get the most accurate fuel calculation that we can. So GANJI to IP KEP, then AKPEX, RUBUM, and NULKO. And then we'll also get a little nav map up and just kind of show you what that looks like from here. So we'll depart Wellington to the north. Once we get to at least 1,000 feet and this waypoint, we'll go ahead, turn left, fly over the north end of downtown Welly, go up over the Cook Strait, and then come across over this way, and then back down into Nelson on our arrival. So what I'll do, just to kind of keep things a little bit fast, but not too slow, we won't enter in every single one of these individual waypoints, but we'll enter in a couple. So GU, SDU, and then we need to turn at RILDOATRES. I'm just going to pick the big ones here, so these will be the last two because this will start our RNAV arrival. Then GUDKI, then finally ASNED. So that should be able to pick that up now, and of course not. Why would we want to pick up all the waypoints? So it doesn't like these ones. Alright, so pretty much we'll simulate as if they gave us a direct route. Or not. Okay, SimBrief, thank you. Alright, so that's going to be the best we can do. Although that's like about where we want to be. Whitby, Hewitt. We're not going to worry about that. So we got our route in there. Then we are going to go ahead and plan an alternate, but our alternate is going to be the airport for our second leg, which will be Christchurch. And then now what we can do is come back into here, go over to the Nelson airport. Nelson, there it is. And our standard routes. So now from Nelson, we only have one option for Christchurch, and that's going to be Q787 ALDA to Y894. Let's see what that has in here. Q787 to ALDA. And then Y894. Y894. Yep, so this will keep for our alternate down into Christchurch, and also go for fuel planning for our next leg, so we hopefully shouldn't have to take too much gas. And that's all we're going to do, so now we'll make this full screen again. And then if you really want, there's a lot of extra like features you can do in here. So like if you wanted to say see the weather radar. Now you have a weather radar, which there's apparently not a lot going down in New Zealand right now. Or infrared satellites, so you can kind of see clouds. It looks a little cloudy down on the south end, but it should be nice and clear right where we want to fly. You can if you wish. So I'll go into generate flight. It's going to do its thing. And now we have our flight plan generated. So once again, we're Air New Zealand 5315 from Welly over to Nelson with an alternative of Christchurch. We're ATR 42600. Let's see, they're planning on a 12,000 foot climb. I'm going to go off whatever our FMS says should be our altitude. And then we're going to have 44 passengers, empty weight of 29,410. And it says we need 3,700 pounds of fuel. We'll probably bump that up to 4. If you really want, you can go ahead and read the briefing as well, which will give you all the exact same information. Here's the other tail numbers I have in the game that we might use. The only thing of note that we'll want to remember is if we do change that altitude from 12,000, we'll have to make sure we adjust our fuel accordingly, which is, yeah, so I'll just want to make sure. Anyway, it won't be much. So if we go up or down, if we go up 1,000 foot, we need to add 14. If we go down, we need to add 5. We'll just want to keep that in mind. Or, sorry, subtract 5, subtract 14. We'll just want to keep that in mind. But now we'll go ahead, get in the sim, and get on our way. Okay, so now that we've done our flight planning for Nelson, now we're going to go ahead and get the aircraft all fired up and ready to go. There's a couple things before we get too far in. Let's get these out the way. And kind of our standard checks coming into the aircraft. We want to make sure that our props are in the, not our props, our throttle's down in the gust lock ground idle position. And then our condition levers are down and shut off. Flaps are up, parking brakes on, gust lock is on, gears down, and windshield wipers are off. So we already have the doors open, wheel chocks in, and ground power hooked up. Now what we'll go ahead and do is turn on the battery and turn on the external power. From flying with Magnar, I did learn, do not touch this one. This ground power is like a maintenance function. We're not maintenance, we're pilots, so we don't want to touch that one. Only this one down here. So now as the aircraft comes alive, we'll come over to our flight plan that we made in SimBrief, and we'll import it. And so now it's got our flight, we got all of our weights, and all that fun stuff. So now what we'll do is go over to our payload section, and we'll load our aircraft. And here I like to just go ahead, hop back into SimBrief and get everything from here. So our estimated zero fuel weight is going to be 40,150. And I'm just going to round it up to 4,000 pounds of fuel. So I want to remember 40,150 and 4,000. So zero fuel weight is 40150. And then we want 4,000 for our fuel, which is 44,150. Hopping back in here, estimated takeoff weight is 4350. Which, yep, we did add extra fuel, so that makes sense. So we should be good to go there. So now we'll start loading up the aircraft. And we'll close that out. Then in our flight plan, it'll also tell us. It'll also go over kind of everything we got in here as well. So I was saying we should have did 39,422. But we're packing on some extra. We went straight with what the other one said. And we'll just take note, 1.6, we'll verify that in a minute. And we're also within our envelope. So go back to flight plan now. And now since everything's up, we're going to go ahead and turn the nav lights on. And then also our wing and logo lights, because we're going to fire up the number 2 engine here in a minute. Go ahead and get the cabin lights on for the crew. Then now I want to check our fuel pumps. We'll turn on pump 1, then cross feed. We see that the low pressure for both 1 and 2 is out. So cross feed off, 2 comes back on. Then that one's off. So turn it on again. And we're good. So now we'll get both of those on, turn the cross feed off. Now we'll check our doors. So cab okay, is showing. Service OK is not showing, but that's because the service door is closed, so that's good. Then we'll do a squib test. We'll go up check fire and check fault. The light's already set up. We'll move the guard off a prop brake because our ready light is dark, so we need to get pressure to the system. So all this is looking good. So come down here, device can go on. Seatbelts will stay off for now. Signals will go to arm. And then we'll get our windshield heats on. We don't need to touch anything here. Go ahead, turn on the crossfeed for the hydraulics. And coming over here, engine bleeds will stay off for now. Or, they're on, sorry. The fault is good. So coming up here, we want to turn the oxygen supply on and check the smoke. That's good. Reset that fault down here. Then we'll do a squib test. Fire and fault on the number 2. So all that looks good. So then coming down here, we'll just get rid of those flashy lights. We're set to TO. We'll leave that dashed out for right now. Turn that to the sideways position. And then coming down here, we're going to do our PCS test. First for the left engine. You just want to watch up here. Yep, so that looks good. Bring that up. Bring back to the middle. Make sure everything reset. And it did. And now for So now for the other one. And that looks good as well. Then we'll put that back in the center, turn it off. All these are off, which is good. So now what we'll do is we'll shimmy over to the middle here just because it's easier. And now we're going to go ahead and get the prop brake on and fire up the number 2 engine. So we're going to say the ground crew gave us the OK to start the number 2 engine. So first thing we want to do is pull up our systems page. And then we want to look right here. So as we can see, there's no hydraulic pressure in anything other than the emergency brake. So that is where this little button right here, the hydraulics aux pump, we press that, everything fires up. And now I have the ready light on. So I'll bring prop brake on, guard it. And why is that on? That's why. Turn that off. Alright, and so now that the pump shut off, we got that warning because there's no more hydraulic pressure in those systems, but we can already see the prop brake is activated. So on my last flight I did start A, so we're going to move to start B for our engine start.
Wellington ground, New Zealand, 236 Lima with uniform ready to taxi
Okay,
IFR.
we need to turn that off.
New Zealand, 236 Lima.
There we go. So we're going to go ahead and hit start 2. And now what we're doing is we're watching right down here for this to get up above 10. I like to wait till about 14. There's 14. And then we're going to bring the condition lever over to the start and feather position. And that's where it's going to stay until we're ready to actually start the aircraft. Well, I guess we have started the aircraft, but when we're actually ready to turn the propeller. Because right now, if we were to come across to our first officer seat, and it's not going to show us, but right now the propeller is not spinning. So as you can see, our prop is still feathered, and we can hear that it's on, and we're also supplying the aircraft with power. So now what we'll do is go ahead, turn off the external power, because we don't need it anymore, and we'll have the ground crew remove it. So now we'll come down to the FMS. We want FMS 1 in it, and we're going to start with weight. We could enter all the weights manually, but the game makes it really easy. We can just hold down the button and it'll put it in for us. So then we got a trim of 1/6 up. That's the wrong way. We're just going to bring that up. So right there is where we want it. Now we'll do, oh, we need to enter our reserve. So our reserve on this is 855. Sorry about that. So now 855 is our reserve. Go down to return. Now perf init. So now our cruise altitude for today's flight. We kind of have it planned at, I want to say it was 13,000? No, 12,000 was the plan that SimBrief gave us. We're going to go with whatever the FMS tells us once we get our route entered, but we'll go ahead and put it in for 12 right now. So there's 12. Then our alternate is NZCH. And I'm just going to assume that's probably going to be a 17,000 foot cruise. Have to check our packet for sure, but 17,000 sounds right for the last time I flew it. Then return, and now we can go down to flight plan init. So for our route, first things first, we're going to enter our flight ID, which is ANZ5315. And then we're going from Wellington, NZWN, to Nelson, which is NZNS. Put that in right down here. Hit execute. And now we'll come down to ND. Scroll out. And let's get that in the plan function. Put it up at 40. And then now we can go previous. And we're going to depart runway 34 on the IPKE 1P to NOCO. And those are the exact waypoints we want, so that's correct. Then we're going to go down to next. And as we click next, I'm just looking up here to make sure everything looks correct. And then from NOCO, we want airway 235. And we want to go to, it was Ridlow? Ridlow. Let's check here. Yeah, Ridlow. So execute, return, return, next, next, next. And click on Nelson. We're going to plan on the, let's see, which one was it? The little nav map will tell us. The RNAV Zulu. So RNAV Zulu to runway 2. On the, let's see, was it the 1B or the 2? It was the 2. Next. To Alpha, ISNED, and none. Execute. So now I'm actually going to bring that in. 1, 2. And just verify these waypoints before we execute it. And that all looks correct. And I can see our altitude restraints as well. So we'll go back. Go ahead, clear this flight plan discontinuity. Execute it again. And just verify everything looks good still. And it does. So that's set up. So now what we'll do is we'll go into perf. And now we'll come down here and hit perf as well. Now I'll verify our takeoff data. We got 108, 108, 111, 108, 108, 111. Gonna go ahead and reset the fuel and confirm takeoff data. Our transition altitude on departure is gonna be 13,000. And we're gonna hit perf again. So this is saying we could go all the way up to 16,900. Well, actually add 1,000 to that. So it looks like 16.9 and 17.9. We don't want to go that high, so let's check our briefing packet again and verify that. Yep, so 12,000 is going to be our cruise altitude today. And while we're there, let's get our wind. So 12,000, and coming down here, our average wind is 255 at 16. Right there, 255 at 16. So 255 at 16. And we got 12,000 up there. Our alternate is NZCH. Enter that. Perfect. One more time. Transition altitude on the way down is 15,000. So 15,000 right there. And then we'll go ahead and go into perf for takeoff. We'll put FMS 2 over into progress mode. And now we'll come over here to the center screen finally. So right here, this is kind of our whole menu box. This is actually controlled right down here in the real aircraft. But in the sim, it's hard to go back and forth. So they do have this handy little click spot help, which if you click in the right spots on the screens, it'll actually take you to whatever page you want to go to. Pretty handy. The only part of that I actually use is for this one right here. And it's this bottom left corner. So final cockpit preparation, click. We'll verify all that information is correct. Click. Click again. And so now our parking brake is engaged and pressures were already checked. That was back on the systems page. So pressure. Altimeters. We hit the magic B key and they are checked and set. Landing elevation. That is correct. Then FMS, comms, and nav. So come down into comm. I'm going to have AI. Well, usually I'd have the AI handle that, but we're going to leave that off for today's flight. That way I don't got to talk over it. So coming into nav, we're going to click that total of 3 times. I like to put traffic on normal, and since the weather radar doesn't work, put it in terrain mode. And I do the same thing for our second officer. And then, because I always forget it, we'll leave the transponder page up because I am notorious about forgetting to turn on the transponder. So it's good. Fuel quantities are checked. We need at least 3,700. We have almost 4,000, so we're good to go there. And we've already reset the fuel used. Memo page is this right over here, and it just says no devices on. Power management set to takeoff. And then our cockpit door locking system is now in the closed position and on. We've already checked and set our takeoff data. Trims are set. Tail props currently still out for our passengers. But while we wait for the rest of them to board, we'll go ahead and set up this. So first things first, we're going to take off runway 34 today. Let's get our ND set up so we can see again. Go to round. And now we'll move that heading bug to the proper runway selection. Which, by the way, guys, I finally got a throttle quadrant. I got the Honeycomb Bravo, I think it is, so it actually has like knobs and autopilot controls on it. Pretty sweet. I'm actually very excited to have it. I even got a yoke and rudder pedals. So that's pretty cool. But with that, I'm very new to flying the sim this way, so I can't promise our takeoff's going to be very pretty. So we got heading set over to 340. So what I like to do is arm the altitude first. That arms heading hold. Then we'll arm LNAV. And what we're going to do is set speed to auto, so now it's magenta, which is what we want. And I'm going to arm the airspeed hold, and then VNAV. So autopilot is set up for now. And now we're going to go ahead and say that the rest of the passengers are on board. So I'm going to have the ground crew remove the tail prop, wheel chocks, main door, and cargo door. So then I like to leave that on this page. And so now we have our tail prop. Doors are closed. We verified that in here. And if we go up here as well, we can see nothing showing unlocked. And no lights came on when I pressed the button. So we want to turn the seatbelt sign on and get the beacon light. So there's our beacon and nav. That's good to go. And so now what we're going to do is, this is where I guess a lot of people have been having issues with the prop brake and being in hotel mode. So if we look up here, the ready light is off. In order to get the ready light to come on, the airplane has to be in a certain set of criteria. The first being we have to be on the ground. We have to have hydraulic pressure. The prop has to be in either shut off or feather. And there's one more. There's another condition. I want to say it's something to do with the throttles have to be within the gust lock range. Oh, the gust lock has to be on. And so if you don't have any of those conditions, you can't turn the prop brake on or off. So the big thing right now is it's not in the ready position because we don't have hydraulic pressure. What we gotta do is hit the hydraulic aux pump again. That comes on. Ready light's on. We've already spoke with the ground crew, and I'll go ahead and take that off, and we can see unlock, prop brake ready. And now our NP looks pretty stable right there. So what we're going to go ahead and do is bring that condition lever number 2 up to auto. And then if we hop outside again, now you can see that prop is spinning and it's spooling up as we go out of feather and into auto. So now as that comes up, we want to go ahead and do our anti-skid test. So anti-skid test is good. We have hydraulic pressure, so we'll go ahead and drop flaps 15. And then, let's see. So we gotta do a recall. Let's recall. Everything's good there. Cockpit comm hatch stays open for now. We do want to go ahead and, so we're going to work on start number 1 momentarily. Anti-icing, we don't need. TRU, we will go ahead and turn that on now that engine 2 is up and running. Anti-skid test is done, flaps are good, and nose wheel steering is on. So now we'll get clearance from the ground crew to fire up number 1. They said we are good to go. So now we'll start number 1, still on start B. So now we're looking over here, waiting for that to come up above 10. I like to wait till about 14. There's 14. So now our engine's coming up, and so now we're going to look at the MP percentage, wait for it to stabilize, then go up to auto. But you should stabilize between like 10 and 12. What I've noticed is it's usually about 11, 11 and a half it seems to stabilize. So now, got that coming up because it stabilized. We saw the signal on here, low pitch. So that's good to go. Now that engine number 1 is fired up, we'll go ahead and close the comm hatch. Put that on ND and actually put it on map. And let's zoom that in. And let's get that ND pulled up. This flight will be at that one, and 5 and 10 is good. So comm hatch is closed, condition levers are set to auto, anti-icing is good once we get these probes on. Turn that to start abort. That can go off. So what we're looking for up here is really no white lights. No white lights, no fault lights. So as we're seeing, we got greens, we got blue, everything's looking good. So go ahead and get that taxi light turned on because we're going to be ready to go momentarily. Anti-icing's good, TRU is on, anti-skid test perform, flaps 15, nose wheel steering is on. Get that back on map. And so now it's time to actually begin our flight. So we got our brakes held on. Parking brake is off. Taxi takeoff lights are on. We just check the brakes. Then, yep, that's checked and set. Then takeoff config test. That's this little button right down here. And if you paid attention right there, it said takeoff okay. Just confirmed it. We're good there till the before start. What I'm going to do is look this way and give us a real nice sharp turn to get out of here. Oh, look, an all blacks Airbus. That's nice. If you're curious about what traffic add-on I'm using, if you have the fly-by-wire installer for like the fly-by-wire Airbus, I actually just use the traffic that's in there. It's like FSTL. One thing I have noticed since I got the Bravo throttle quadrant is that if I leave the condition levers in, the throttle levers in idle Apparently the RPM just like won't be enough to power the hydraulics, and then it'll lose brake pressure. So what I've been doing is just popping number 1 or number 2, depending on what I need, up a little, and that seems to fix the problem. That's probably how I have it set up in here for the position of the throttles. I don't know if that's something you guys are experiencing too. Oh, we forgot to hit this little button here to start the clock for wheels off. Or I guess blocks out. And so we definitely want to go that way because we've got 2 Airbuses staring down at each other. So we're going to go this way. And we'll probably ride this as far down as we can. So there's not a lot to do until we get out to the runway, so I will talk to you once we get there. Okay, so here we are at the end of the runway, ready to go, so we'll go through the before takeoff. Our taking briefing is complete. Go ahead, turn off the gust lock. Flight controls are checked and set. Transponder can go to on. Let's go ahead, squawk VFR. Actually, you know, some people don't like it when I squawk VFR, so we'll just put in our flight number, which it'll be a messed up flight number. 5135. Oh, my bad. 5315. Enter. Alright, so we got our transponder on. We're not going to use boost today. Airflow, we'll leave the bleeds on for this departure. Cabin crew has been advised for takeoff. Engine bleeds are on. Exterior lights. Let's go ahead and get the rest of those turned on. That is set, and we are good to go. So I'll bring this up to ND so that way we can see what we're doing. I'll go ahead and leave it on this screen, but bump it out to a 1020. Not seeing any aircraft coming down on final. Looks clear. And now we'll go ahead and roll out to the runway. So we'll just verify once again, take off okay. Zoom this out. Let's get our controls back in. And here we go. Sorry if I get a little quiet. I'm trying to figure out where the microphone needs to be now that I have a yoke, because now there's a yoke in front of me where I used to just have a joystick and could just talk right into the microphone. So, excuse me if it is a little quiet as I try and figure this out. So there is an aircraft down at the end of the runway. I can see it. We'll wait and see if it moves, or maybe we'll just take off with it right there. So we'll just hold down the brakes. Let's zoom in real quick. It's coming towards us. Oh, it's that All Blacks Airbus. Alright, so he is rotated. Well, this is kind of cool. Oh, that's neat. Alright, so now that he's clear of the runway, we're going to hold down the brakes and we're going to bring the throttles up to the notch position. Wait for him to come all the way up. And now off the brakes, we're going to push the nose down, and wind's pretty much straight down the runway, so we're going to just hold the yoke straight. So we're coming up on our V1 and rotate. Just going to ease off the forward pressure on the yoke. Man, what was that guy thinking? So we got a positive rate, tap the brakes, and we'll bring the gear up. We're gonna pitch to maintain that initial speed till we get to our acceleration altitude of roughly 1,000 feet. I don't know what that forklift was thinking. He turned right at us too. It's almost like that deer I hit last year. Looked right at us and then came for us. Alright, so there's 1,000 feet, so we'll work on accelerating to bring our flaps up. which will be pretty close to 140. So it's right about there. And then I'll go ahead and get the autopilot on as well. Sorry about that. So flaps are up, gear is up. So now as we are getting everything set up, we're going to bring this over to the climb position. So turn that twice, that gets us into climb. We hear the throttle come back, and then we're going to start pitching for 170 knots. So landing gear up, flaps are set to 0. We can see that right there. Power management is set to climb. Engine bleeds we left on. Taxi takeoff lights can go off. There we go. And then altimeters are set. Checked and set. That's good. Man, that is gorgeous. One day I'd love to finally make it here to New Zealand and to Wellington and all of those fun places. Look at how gorgeous that looks. So pretty. Now we're going to hit a little cloud layer. There's the airport that we just left from. Absolutely gorgeous. For any of you that are from the Wellington area, I know I used to have a couple viewers from there. Are there actually windmills right there? Or is that just something either We Love VFR or the game put in? I'd love to know if those windmills actually exist, because that's super pretty. I always love seeing them when I fly into Wellington. I'd love to know that those are real. And we're flying through some clouds. Looks like we got 10 and 6, so icing might be a concern. I think it'd be a fairly minor concern, though, especially because the tops are right here above us. So I'm not too terribly concerned about icing. Then now that we have departed, we'll bring that to flight plan. Actually, I'll go to progress, turn this one to flight plan. And we'll switch that to altitude constraints. And let's see, so we're looking at a 0251 arrival. Which one thing that always tripped me up is I thought that meant we had 2 hours and 51 minutes to our arrival. It actually means the time, so 2:51. So we got about half hour until we get there. I don't really know if I want to bore you guys for the entire part over cruise to Nelson. But essentially from here, all we're going to do is switch this to cruise once we get up to our cruise altitude of 12,000 feet. It's real simple. There's really nothing to do until we start our descent. And so with that, I guess I'm going to let you guys go for now, and I'll talk to you here in a little bit. Okay, so we're just about to our top of descent. As you can see, we got like the Port of Nelson and stuff right up here in front of us. So looking here, there's our top of descent right there, just about this next waypoint. As you can see, we're a little bit off track. For the person that can recognize in the beginning of the video where that mistake happened, go ahead, drop down in the comments, because I know what mistake happened now. I did not catch it earlier. So let's see if one of you guys found it. Anyway, we're just about there. Once we got up to cruise, all we did was, once we got up close to our magenta airspeed, we went ahead, popped it over to cruise. Then at 10,000 feet, we turned off the landing lights and the seatbelt sign. But now we'll want to go ahead and get the crew ready to land, so we'll turn on the seatbelt sign and the cab lights so they can clean up the cabin. And we're coming up on our top of descent. So what I'm waiting for is for our glide path to come in up here. But I actually like to descend a little bit early. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything programmed in to bring us to... It always likes to do that for some reason. So it looks like we'll be above 8,000 at our next waypoint. I'm going to turn this down to 8,000. And I'm just going to begin a fairly shallow descent at, let's call it 700 feet per minute. Maybe. Oh, okay. There we go. It helps if you set the knob to turn everything to the proper setting. So we're going to begin that descent. I'm also going to slow us up to about 210. And so now we got our glide path up. So I'm going to wait till we get centered, and then I'm going to click VNAV. There it is. So now we'll go to VNAV path. And I'm still going to work on slowing us up. And so watching the videos from the real ATR pilot that does his tutorials on the aircraft, he'll say that they descend pretty close to like 240. I'm not like bad at flying this aircraft, but for me 240 is a bit fast and I have a hard time getting the aircraft to slow down. So I like to keep it a little bit slower. And so now our descent checklist, we're going to do a recall. Nothing shows up. Landing elevation, 0 feet's good. Our FMS is checked and set. We do have our decision height programmed from the chart. And arrival briefing is performed. We are in our approach, so seatbelts are on. Landing lights will go on right about now, actually. Oh, that was the wrong way. There we go. Landing lights are on. Altimeters are set. Cabin altitude is over here somewhere. Cabin altitude is declining, which is what we want. We'll get the before landing ready, that way we can reference it as we get closer. So we're doing about 210 right now, coming through 10,000 feet. There's our airport. There's Nelson. Which one of the things is I do absolutely love this approach, how we kind of come in this way, then we go out and back in. This is a gorgeous approach into town. So what I'm going to do is once we get to this waypoint and start our left turn to go that way, I'm going to slow us down to 190. We do have a maximum speed of 210 right here at SNED, and we'll turn left and then turn left again to actually line up with the runway. My goal is to be at about 190 by SNED. Then we're going to slow down to our first flap speed when we turn to line up with the runway. And then I want to drop the gear at our final waypoint right here, which would be, I think right about this lake is where I want to drop the gear of our final notch of flaps in as we come into land. But overall, I actually really like this airplane. It's probably my favorite. It's hard to say if this is truly my favorite. I really like this one. The Kodiak has a very special place in my heart, and so does the A2A Comanche. Both are phenomenal aircraft, and I love them. And each one of these aircraft, so the Comanche, the Kodiak, and the ATR, they have very different missions, but they're probably my favorite 3 aircraft for the game. I really like all 3 of them. And I have nothing bad to say about any of them either. Alright, and so we're coming up on our above 6,000. After that it's 3,300, so let's get that programmed in. Because we're 1,600 feet above it, and we're going to get there in about 30 seconds. We're not going to drop that much altitude that fast, so let's go ahead, get slowed down to 190. So now I'll let the cabin crew know we're getting ready to land. So then what we got left is 3 green flaps. We do want to go into takeoff mode. We'll do that now. That'll help us lose some speed. Then, let's see. Okay. So then right here, if you look, this like double line below 188, 189, whatever our speed is right now, that's going to be our flaps 15 speed. This triangle is our landing gear speed. And when we get slower, you'll see a similar to this setup for our flaps 30 speed, which is actually super handy and good to know. So you don't gotta try and remember your speed, just look at the screen and it'll pretty much tell you what you need to do. We should start our left-hand turn in just a second. Get our heading bug brought up to where we are. That we don't gotta turn it 100 times when I need it. And now let's get also brought down to our flaps 1 speed. So then we're actually going to come in at kind of an angle. The actual runway is right there where that should be the Auckland ATR. It's landing at Nelson. But the actual runway kind of goes out like this versus we're going to come in at an angle because of the hillside. And then we turn in pretty much right where the bay is. Gorgeous approach. I really like it. There's 170. Let's get our speed back up. Looking to maintain about 175 here. So it'll go up to 180, then we'll back down again. Alright, and now let's go ahead and drop flaps 15. And then there's the double bar for flaps 30. So now what we'll do is we'll slow down to our gear speed, which is about 160. And I also need to get my altitude set to 1900, which will actually just get it set up to about 500. Because I'm going to kill autopilot before then anyway. Alright, so now you can kind of see the runway faces that way like this. But obviously you can see the terrain issue because we're going to proceed this way, kind of angle it in. But there's actually our runway right there. Maintain right about perfectly our gear speed. Well, a little high according to the glide path. And I want to go ahead and sync our heading bug to us. Because now I'm going to just have it on a heading hold until we take autopilot off. So we're going to maintain this until we get a little bit closer. So now I'm going to go ahead and need to just slow down just a touch. We're right at that gear speed. We'll go ahead and drop the gear. And now we want to slow down to about 140. So landing gears come down. We just need to verify 3 green. 1 green. There's 2 and 3. Good. So flaps, we got to slow down just a little bit more still. And we're pretty much right on top of that. Wait till about 148 so we don't overspeed it. Flap set. So flaps, power management set to takeoff. True low speed is on. Icing not required. External lights are set. Alright, so now what we're going to do is just zoom out real quick. And now we're just going to manually fly it. So we'll kill autopilot. I don't know why that's doing that. There we go.
Approaching decision height. .500 decision height. .200 .100 .50 .40 .30 .20 .10
Alright, and then there you have it. We have now arrived in Nelson. We're just going to keep on cruising down to the end of the runway. Give just a little bit of reverse thrust on one side. Get us slowing down. So in radar, we actually never turned it on. It's good. Flight controls, go ahead, lock them. Flaps can come up. Okay, let's give number 1 a little bit of power. That way we don't have any hydraulic issues. The flaps are up. Let's see, that is trims are good. Landing lights and strobe can come off. And let's get the taxi light on though. Keep the logo wing lights on because we're going to lock the prop in hotel mode when we get there. Anti-icing we never turned on. Probe heating can go ahead and go off. Reset that caution. And TRU can go off as well. And just make sure we don't run off the taxiway here. Then after 2 minutes we can feather the prop, so let's reset that and start letting that count. Yeah, so we spent, looks like 33 minutes from wheels up to wheels down. So it's a pretty short flight. Our flight to Christchurch is going to be slightly longer. But that's okay. Once we get parked, we got to go ahead and do our flight planning for the Christchurch leg and get the aircraft reconfigured from this. What we will do is we'll go ahead and put the autopilot into standby. And then now we get to try and park. I'm not the best at parking from inside of the cockpit, but we're going to give this our best shot. Because recently my ground handling people haven't been showing up anywhere I go. It's weird, they'll show up sometimes, but then other times they're nowhere to be found. So I'm just planning on them not being able to be found. And it never fails, sometimes they want us to park the wrong way at the gate anyway. We're just going to plan for them not being present for today's parking job. And we'll wing it. Although that truck looks conveniently parked at a spot. So maybe they are here. But I would be surprised, to say the least. Okay. Oh, I thought I saw a little plane for a second on the hillside. Oh, there, that truck's leaving. What do they always like to move right in front of us? So let's go to, where's map? There's map. Can I bring that in? That's the wrong button. As close as I can bring that in. So we want to come down here now. And I'll watch our propeller. Then not take out a Cessna in the process. Try not to take out a Cessna or an ATR. That'll be the hard part of this park job. We just stay focused and we'll do well, right? So I think right about here is where we want to pivot. Straighten it up just a hair. Then, oh, that was way too hard on the brakes. And it says stop. Landing gear is somewhere about this door. We'll stop it right there. So now park brake on. So park brake is on. Let's go ahead and do the parking checklist. Parking brake on. Taxi takeoff lights to off. Let me find the switch. Nope, that's not the right switch. There we go. Taxi takeoff lights are off. We'll bring both number 1 and 2 down to feather. Then we got to give those at least 20 seconds to go all the way through the feathering process. So start that timer. Beacons need to stay on until the prop stops. We can go ahead and kill that transponder. Don't need that anymore. Bring that down to standby. Tail prop and seatbelts have to wait. So let's scoot over. There's our 20 seconds, so we'll get number 1 set. And then we see prop brake still has a ready by it, so we'll open that, arm it. It's going to go through the process now, so we should see unlock and prop brake. That's good. Hop back into our seat. And now let's see, is that prop stopped? That one is. So now we go ahead and turn the beacon light to off if I can find the right switch. That's nav again. There's beacon light off. Go ahead, aircraft. We'll do wheel chocks, tail prop, cargo, and main. Open up our comm door. So beacon light is off, transponder is standby, tail prop on, seat belts are good. And so from here, if say you wanted to go down to leaving aircraft, you'd hit these buttons right down here, this up and down. This is the enter key essentially. But we want to start a new leg. So bring that there. Enter, new leg, click right here. And now it's pretty much going to wait until we're ready to go. And so now we'll hop back into SimBrief. See how I did it parking this. And then we'll get ready to do the Christchurch leg. And I'm not going to move the aircraft. So actually, let's take a look at how I did parking. Oh, look at that. That's almost spot on. So I'm not going to move the aircraft because I want you to know this is an actual turn. So just remember this park job. It's going to stay exactly the same. So as you can probably hear, we have the ATR still running in the background. From our last flight. It's going to create new flight. This is going to be Air New Zealand flight 5843. And that's going to be from Nelson to Christchurch. It's actually in the air right now, so we won't be landing terribly far behind it either. So if we take a look here, so NZNS, I put a K in there, NZNS to NZCH. Let's see we'll see what the weather looks like, but ATR. There we go. See, weather in Christchurch is becoming probability of 30 fog. But that's between 13 and 1700. Well, it's currently... Yeah, I'm not concerned about that fog. So we're going to do no alternate for this one. No alternate. ATR 72, all that's good. Runway 2 for our departure, runway 2 for the arrival. What were the winds? 070. And what are my options again? 07. Yeah, we'll take runway 2, that's the big one. Auto, that's good. So now come back up here to aip.net.nz. Now we're looking for our standard route clearances from Nelson. And then we want the Christchurch one, which is Q787 Alda Y894. Which, there you go, Q87 Alda Y894. So that looks good. Let's go ahead and just review what that looks like. So we'll depart, come around. We were probably going to say air traffic control will give us this direct. That, because I don't want to do that weird zigzag, quite frankly. Then coming in for that that arrival, that looks good. We'll plan an RNAV into there. So let's see what our RNAV arrivals into Christchurch look like. Show arrival procedures, runway 2. Arrival approach. Where's an RNAV? That's RNAV wrong direction. That might be a decent one. RNAV2V. I actually like that one, so we're gonna probably plan on the RNAV2V into Christchurch. So it's good. Go ahead, generate the flight. Let's see, how much fuel do we have on board? See, airplane's still exactly where we left it. Fuel on board. Let's see, systems. So it looks like we got right about 3,000 pounds. We're going to have to take gas, I hope not. There it is. So gas, we need 3,000 pounds, so we should be good to go for fuel. Taking full load of 68 passengers and cargo. Looks like we're maxing it out, so that's going to be tough on this runway. This runway's short. 12,000 feet. We're probably going to push that higher, because that seems kind of low. Briefing packet. What does our fuel look like if we increase it? If we go up a flight level, we can subtract 22. If we push it up a little bit, we'll be able to subtract. Yeah, so we shouldn't need gas, which is good. So zero fuel weight is 45,390 with 3,000. Okay, 45,390. So coming in here, just like last time, we're going to go ahead, go to our flight plan, import. So there's Nelson to Christchurch. That's what we want. And looking down in here, well, that's different. Because we were, what, 45,390? Yeah, 45,390. So that's a little off. So payload, load aircraft. 45,390. Oh, 390. 3,074 is more than we need for takeoff. Because we only need 13, so we're good there. All that's loaded up. We'll see what our perf says about that. And wind is 253 at 23. Let's confirm that with this. 253 at 23. That is correct. Okay. So start loading. That's in there. We are within the envelope, pretty close to our max landing weight, but that will not be an issue later on. So coming down in here, let's get that out the way. We'll put that on Prague. We'll just click. That doesn't clear out. Never mind. So now we want to go to menu, FMS1, edit, wait. And this will look very familiar because we just did it in Wellington. It's pretty much exactly the same, but this is just for the people that say that you can't do a turn. I want to show you can do a turn. You just have to, I guess, use the aircraft a certain way. So our reserve is 937 right there. We can verify that on our dispatch release by coming over here and scroll down to the fuel section. Minimum for takeoff is 2553. And then where is the reserve? Here we go. So I'm blind. It's up here. Reserve. I know where it is. Hang on, sorry guys. I'm trying to show off and I can't do it right now. Fin reserve. There we go. 937. So that says 937. 937. There we go. So click return again. Prevent it. That says 12. We're going to leave it as 12. No alternate. So back there. And then flight plan init. Route. So now we're going to be A in Z. I forgot our flight number. 5843. 5843. Put that in the box. We're going from Nelson NZNS to NZCH. Which am I recording? Yeah, I am. Okay, cool. So execute. So from Nelson, we're going to depart runway 2 on the IDNI to Papa. IDNI to Papa. Going to Nesta. To Nesta. I forgot to set this up to ND. Let's put our ND in plan mode so I can see what I'm doing. I plan to be at 40 miles. So that is good. And just checking our progress along the way. So from Nesta, we want to get on an airway, which is 787 to Alda. 787 to Alda. Right there. Execute, return, return. And we'll just verify that. That looks good. Then from Alda, we're going to get on another airway, which should be the 894. 894 to Igrega. 894 to Igrega. Execute. Return. Return. Next. Next. What I found out to get the airport centered, if you go next one more time so it resets, hit previous, and now the airport is centered. So there's Christchurch. We're going to do the RNAV Victor into runway 2. But I'm not seeing an RNAV Victor. There it is. RNAV Victor on the Igrega 6 Alpha. So 6 Alpha. Right there. And that's a lot going on. 1, 2. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, so we're going to put Irvax in there and we'll clean that up in a second. None. Enter. Good. So now we got to do some cleaning up of this departure. Well, not departure, this arrival. It's right here. I'm going to scratch that one. And we're going to scratch that one. And we're going to scratch this one without the restraint, like that. Execute. Let me bring that in one more time. So, here we go. So, next, next. That's nice and pretty. Okay, so that looks good. Yep. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to say we contacted the clearance, and they did make an amendment to our flight plan. And the amendment is that once we get to ID and IM, we're going to get direct to Igrega. That's going to be our amendment. So to do that, we're going to just go ahead and go clear. Clear. And clear the discontinuity. So now it's straight from ID and IM to Igrega. We're going to say that's what clearance told us is what we want to do today. So everything else is looking good. So we'll go back to ND. Just make sure. Oh, I'm already in ND, never mind. Just bring that up. A lot of terrain apparently. Shocker. And I'll actually leave it on this screen, but we'll zoom it in to a 510. That one's on a 255, so that's good. And we'll actually bring it up to systems because that's what we're going to need from here out. We'll leave it on that one for now. And I'll go through those final cockpit checks back through this checklist again. So final cockpit, we get this screen again. Parking brake is set, pressure is checked. Altimeters, magic B key says we are all squared away there. Landing elevation showing 100 feet. That's pretty close. FMS, comm, and nav are set up. Fuel quantity is... We need to go back into systems, find the right page. Actually, not systems, perf. It is fuel quantity and... Oh, I'm thinking of the wrong thing. My bad. We do want to reset it, though, so reset. Fuel quantity, we need at least 2,500 pounds on takeoff. We're at 3,000 right now, so we're at our block fuel. That's good. Hey, there we go. It is checked and reset. Memo panel shows no device, and we never turned off that seatbelt sign. So that's good. Power management is set to take off. Cockpit door is locked. FMS takeoff data. So now we want to go back into perf. So we got 111, 111, 114, 111, 111, 114. Transition altitude for this flight is 13,000 on the climb out. 13,000. Then perf it again. So it looks like maximum we got is 17. So we could actually go up to 18. So we're going to do a 17,000 foot cruise, which is what I thought we'd be doing. So let's get that tuned into 17,000. Because we should be able to just VNav the departure. So I get to do a lot of spinning of our altitude wheel. I wish, that's the only thing, my complaint. So I love the fact this Honeycomb Bravo has the spinning wheel for the autopilot controls. I just wish I could spin a little bit faster for things like the heading and the altitude. So it's now set to 17. Cruise altitude says 17. Mean wind was 253 at... 253 at... Was it 23? Yeah, 23. The 253 slash 23. So all that's good. Perfect again. Transition altitude on the way down is 150. So then perf it again. Let's go to perf init. Make sure that says 17. Sure it does. And so now we'll go back to perf. 111, 111, 114. Nothing changed there, so we are good to go. That stays in Prague. FMS and takeoff data is set and confirmed. Trim, so we need to get that set up. That's the wrong way. Actually, that's the wrong way. Too much. Let's see, is our takeoff trim 1-1? Takeoff trim is 1-1, so 1-1 up is checked and set. So now we just got to finish getting the rest of the passengers on board. Let's reset that. We also need to turn that off. Forgot to do that. Then let's just go up here and verify that we got everything going well. So pumps are on, crossfeed. Important thing to note, in the real aircraft, I don't think the game simulates it, but in order to get an accurate reading on your fuel quantity gauge, you have to leave the pumps on for a certain amount of time. So cab door okay. And everything's looking good until we get everyone on board. I'm going to say we go ahead, we have everyone on board, so tail prop, door, chocks are on. Put that back there. Shimmy over to the middle so we can start the propeller again. Get those squared away. And we're going to say that we went ahead, talked with the ground crew, and they advised us that we are good to spin the propeller. So system is pressurized. We have a ready light there on the prop brake, and we'll take it off. So we see unlock come on, prop brake extinguish, and now it just says ready. So if we hop outside, we are spinning. So that is good. So coming back up here, that's stabilized at 11.1. So go ahead and bring that up to auto. We got signal channel that just lit up right there. So then tail prop is good, doors are good, and beacon light, forgot that little bugger. There we go. So beacon and seatbelt are on. Those checks are complete. So now we can start on our before taxi. So now that we're in the before taxi, we're going to wait for that to come up a little bit more. Put that back on systems, actually. So go ahead, drop flaps to 15 because we have hydraulic pressure. Go ahead, do an anti-skid test. That looks good. And a test I forgot last time is the ice and the APM. Forgot that on our last flight, so let's go ahead and do that now. Everything's good. Now APM. Alright, so that's good. Now do a recall. Recall's done. And now we'll say we talked with the ground crew and we're good to start the number 1. We did start B on the last flight, so we're going to go ahead and do start A this time. So now we're coming up, we're looking for 10 to 14% over here on number 1. There's 10. Once again, I like to wait till about 14. There's 14. Engine's coming up. So engine's coming up. That should not be in auto yet. My bad. Now we can bring it up to auto. Because prop did stabilize. That was my bad. I put it in the wrong spot. That's good. So now that prop's coming up, we can go ahead, close that, close that. So we got comm hatch closed. Condition levers are set to auto. Anti-icing as required. TRU can come on. Anti-skid test was performed. Flaps are set to 15. Nose wheel steering is on. Which, by the way, this is your nose wheel steering right here. And so once again, I said that since I got this Honeycomb Bravo, I seem to have an issue with, for whatever reason, the props won't be the right speed and idle. So I just like to pop the number 1 usually up just a hair. And look, now that's good to go. Just verifying everything here. We can get that turned back to start abort. And let's see, what's that fault light? AC Gen 2. Okay, that's going to be because that's not at a high enough RPM, so that's good. We got our glide path kind of glitching out there. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get the taxi light turned on and heading down to the runway. Alright, so here we are down at runway 2, and we are ready for takeoff. So our takeoff briefing is complete. Gust lock can come off. Flight controls are checked. Transponder. Make sure our parking brake's holding. Sure is. Transponder can go on. We'll use it with the same code we had last time. Then for this one, we are going to use the boost function because Nelson is a short runway. Airflow is set to normal. We never put it in high. Cabin crew has been advised that we are ready for takeoff. Engine bleeds, because this is a short runway, we are going to go ahead and turn the bleeds off so we can have as much engine power as possible. External lights can all come on now, so we'll verify all are on. And those two are good. So we have just the pack 1 and 2 fault, which is good because we turned those off. So looking over at everything, we are only seeing greens. Okay, TRU for whatever reason is not on, even though it should be. Got a fault there on the AC2 gen still. Oh, probably because, I bet that's why, but if we were to pop that up, bet that would solve our problem. Yep, there we go, so TRU is on, that fault's off, so that's good. Only 2 faults we're seeing are in relation to the bleed air. So everything's looking good. Let's verify there's no one coming in on final. There's someone way out there, but I think we can get out before he gets on top of us, so go turn the parking brake off. And we forgot our block off time and start the chrono. So this is a short runway, so we're going to want to use as much of it as we can. So we want to make this turn nice and sharp when we line up. So actually we'll cut a little bit over to the left. And now we'll crank it over to the right. And I don't care about being super lined up because the big thing is we don't want to waste too much pavement here. We can make the rest of the adjustments later on as we go down the runway. So that's good enough for me. So we'll hold down the brakes. Throttle comes up to notch. We'll push that down, and we got a little bit of a left wind, so we'll also turn that to the left. Like so. And I actually put that in ramp, not notch. Bring that down to notch. And let's rock and roll. So airspeed's alive, so we'll slowly start backing off the downward pressure as our airspeed comes up. We're coming up on V1. Here's V1 and rotate. Try not to pitch up too much. And we're up. Tap the brakes, gear up, and then we want to maintain just about our current speed. So I don't know if it's like that in real life, if it uses up almost the entire runway, but man, these ATRs, especially compared to a Dash 8, are just like a runway hog. So we'll go ahead, begin that left-hand turn to our next waypoint. It's an ATR right above us, probably the one that was on final. We're up above 1,000 feet, so we'll start slowing. We'll start increasing speed up to 140 so we can bring our flaps up. So then there's our flap speed, so flaps can come up, and we'll go ahead and activate the autopilot as well. All we'll go ahead and do is activate VNAV path. And then now that we are in the climb, we'll go ahead and move that to climb. Select the after takeoff checklist. And we'll get our bleeds back on, so that way our cabin starts pressurizing like normal. And the taxi and landing light can come off as well. So going through our checklist, landing gear is up, flaps are up, power management is set to climb, engine bleeds are turned back on, taxi takeoff light is off, and altimeters are checked and set. And there you have it. So it is entirely possible to do a turn in this aircraft. It is possible to use the hotel mode. You really just gotta kind of know, I guess, the process of the aircraft, which is probably the hard part. I know I've seen a guy on YouTube that for hotel mode just slaps straight up to auto, and then when it doesn't want to come out, they increase the power, which, if you kind of think about it, it's essentially like a little brake inside the in my mind, I'm not like super up to date on the systems of this aircraft, but pretty much a rod goes in and locks that prop into place, and that's why it doesn't spin. So if you apply more power, it's going to want to spin faster, which is going to make it really hard to actually lock it and probably going to break something. So hotel mode can be kind of tricky, but once you get it figured out, it's pretty awesome. This is a really great airplane. I'm going to go ahead and carry on to Christchurch. For the rest of the flight, pretty easy. We're going to do exactly what we did last time. We're going to climb up to our cruise altitude of 17,000 feet. When we pass 10,000 feet, landing lights go off, seatbelt sign goes off, weather dependent. And then 17,000 feet, once we get up to our magenta speed, we'll go ahead and plop it into cruise. And with that, I'll see you guys for top of descent and our approach into Christchurch. Alright everyone, we're right about 3 miles out from our top of descent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get our descent begun. So our first altitude restriction is above 8,000. So we're going to go ahead and get that dialed in. And let's see, there's 9, 70. There we go. And just like last time, we're going to just begin a gentle descent until we pick up our vertical nav, which looks like it's right below us. So we're going to go ahead and activate VNAV. And once we do get on that vertical path, our descent checklist pops up automatically. So we're going to go ahead and do a recall. Nothing pops up. Landing elevation is checked. FMS is set. Decision height is set. Arrival briefing is done. We'll leave approach up for now. Go ahead and flip on the cabin light and let the flight attendants know we're beginning our descent and have people sit down in their seats because it's probably going to be a little bumpy as we come through the mountains and these clouds. We'll maintain this power setting for our descent. We'll try not to go too much faster than 220. And one of the things I didn't talk about last time, which I could talk about now, is this screen right here and like how to use it. I mentioned the keys right here, but if we go to like the main menu page, so we got the procedure page here. If we use the up and down menus and then the enter key, we can actually pull up all these other procedures, which is pretty good. So like here's the abnormal one. So let's say we have something abnormal with a flight control. There's all these options. So let's go down to, let's do Dutch roll tendency. It'll actually tell you all kinds of cool stuff. Or let's say for whatever reason it didn't automatically pop up your normal procedure for descent. You go down to normal procedure, excuse me, and then click on descent and activate it and then run through the checklist like normal. However, it won't automatically bring up the next one, so you will still have to go manually do that. But it's actually really nice to have that there. Let's see, we need to back off our throttle a little bit more. We're starting to get a little bit faster than I want to be. And so for our approach, as you can see, we're going to come down, should hit 8,000 about there. It'll be this nice kind of curve into the airport. So because we're going to be about 2,000 foot higher than our minimum right there, I'm going to keep us a little bit slower. That way we actually start to hit those speeds, those altitudes a little bit better. So for now, I'm going to keep us about 220 and under. I'll probably actually bring in 210 or under. We'll plan to be at 190 right here, and we'll start putting flaps and gear down as we hit this curve. And let's see, so we're going to hit the clouds, 4 and -4. We'll go ahead and put on the alpha phase of anti-ice. We'll put it on just till things look a little bit better. That way we don't have any problems with icing on the way down. One thing I did notice on a flight I made about a week ago is even with all the anti and de-icing systems on, for whatever reason, Microsoft Flight Simulator still built up a ton of ice on the wings, on the probe here, on the nose. It still looked like we were just absolutely covered in ice, even though I had all the systems for icing on. So that was something hopefully they'll fix in the future. But I did learn that the other day. It didn't seem to have any real effect on the performance of the aircraft. I did notice that while we were in cruise, our like percentage of torque was bumping up into the yellow, which I haven't normally seen, but I was up at like 22,000 feet, which I normally don't fly the ATR that high. So that could have been a contributing factor. I'm really not sure. Then we're coming through 10,000, so let's get our landing lights on. Flip the seatbelt sign again, and also the device light. That way the flight crew in the back knows that we are descending, and we forgot to do our altimeter. So that is checked and set now. And we're hitting the clouds right at freezing. We're not in the clear until about 10 degrees though, so we'll just leave that on for now. But I'm not as concerned about icing anymore. It was -3 earlier. So seatbelt signs on, landing lights on, altimeters are checked and set, cabin altitude. Should be good to go. See, it is decreasing at 1100. We're good there, so clear that. Back to ND. And we're finally starting to kind of see the Christchurch area because there's this giant lake. And, so apparently, this happened last time I flew into Christchurch too. Apparently, even though I have a really nice computer, I'm not free and clear of, you know, the occasional freeze when it's trying to load a scenery. So we did just have that little freeze there. We need to drop our altitude down to 6,000. I forgot about updating that. And we're not going to drop almost 3,000 feet that fast. We'll go ahead and drop it to 4,000 for the waypoint after. And let's work on slowing it down because we want to work on getting to 190 now. Because I want to be at 190 when we hit this 210 requirement. Well, it's below 210, so I want to be below 190. Well, not below 190. I want to be at 190 or below. And that's just because I have a hard time getting this aircraft to slow down. So I like to run it a little slower than I probably should, just because I don't want to overfly or overspeed everything. Just give it a little bit of throttle, just to kind of maintain. We'll let it creep up to 200, then drop it back down to about 185. That'll be the game plan. We're coming to the clouds through at 9 and 3, so we'll just keep that on for in case we pick up any light icing as we come down. See, I'm at 10 and 20. That should be 5 and 10 then. That'll be good. And if I remember right, the METAR said it's overcast at 5,000, so we should have about another 2,000 foot of cloud to go through. Now temperature's 10 and 4. We should pretty much be clear of icing by this point. Oh, that's really pretty. Our airport's somewhere right there. Alright, so we're at 196. Want to be below 210. But zoom in and zoom in. And it's coming up on 200, so let's go ahead and reduce it. We'll actually reduce it to 180 because I'm going to want to start slowing down once we hit not this waypoint, but the next one right up here. Because I'm going to want to start putting my flaps and dropping my gear soon. And let's see, our airport should be right out there somewhere. Let's see, I'm not seeing it right now. Let's see, there's town. Airport's right there. Because town is right here, and I love this approach going into runway 29 where you fly right over town and then land this way. So yeah, that's our airport right there. And we should be totally free of that icing now, so we'll go ahead and turn off our icing systems. To verify everything's looking good still. Yep, sure is. And cabin crew has been advised. Gotta wait for the landing gear and everything still. Up, and we really slow down. I was too busy looking out the window, not paying attention flying. See, I'm trying to think of what would be our best time to put the gear down. I think once we get like right here in the middle of this curve, that'd be a good time to get our gear down. I think probably do flaps 15 right here, gear in 30 as we come around this turn. That might be best. We'll see how it feels as we get closer. Terrain ahead. Oh. Well, that is not accurate at all. Look at that. It says we're right next to like a mountain. Well, that is very inaccurate. I don't know why it's... Oh. That's interesting. Very interesting. And we'll take it over and fly it manually now. Because it's always fun to manually fly it, right? That's more fun than just letting autopilot do all the work. So let's work on bringing back speed a little bit more. That way we can put in our first notch of flaps. Oh. Yeah, we'll only get first notch of flaps and our gear in pretty soon. So let's go ahead and set this to takeoff. That'll help us because it'll get that prop RPM up. Well, not the RPM, but it'll help change the pitch of the blades. I want to begin that left-hand turn. And we're getting real close to our flap 15 speed. And this is what I was saying, I have a hard time getting the aircraft to slow down once it gets too fast.
Terrain ahead.
Now we're too high. So let's keep our speed slow and decreasing.
Terrain ahead.
Yeah, we are way too high right now.
Terrain ahead.
We're at almost 4,000 feet. We should not be at almost 4,000 feet right now. I don't know why it's wanted to alarm on that terrain. So we can drop our last notch of flaps in. Then landing gear good, flaps good, power management is set. We got TLO low speed. I see. Yep. So that's all good. Now we just got to work on coming into land, which is going to be the hard part, but hopefully I've lost enough speed to get us in. Kind of. Gotta work on dropping pretty fast now. Because this is definitely the runway we want. I can't just kind of swing it to runway 29 because of the wind. Got almost 20 knots coming pretty much straight down the runway. So we'll just do a fairly steep approach. Like, seems like every time I fly into Salt Lake City, we're always just diving out of the sky. Let's do something kind of similar to that. We got plenty of runway, so we can afford to be a little fast. And we actually don't look too bad right now. I mean, we're still high. Definitely not a stabilized approach by any means, but we'll make it work. Alright, so got 22 knot wind. It'll blow us a little bit that way. Let's work on getting everything straightened out. Alright, starting to look a little bit better now. Get myself a little bit of nose up trim. Keep hitting the mic with the yoke. Sorry, guys. Not used to having a microphone and a yoke yet. Alright, so we actually managed to save that pretty well. It's not how the approach is designed, that's for sure, but, you know, we recovered well. Definitely could have been worse. We're still a little high, though.
Approaching decision height.
Yep.
Decision height. 500.
Not my best approach, but it definitely could be worse. Let's hope what looks like Jetstar there stays on the taxiway and doesn't come onto the runway. I feel like they're going to pop out right in front of us because why not?
200. 100.
Good, they stayed. That's nice.
50. 40.
Alright, let's bring it in
30.
as nice as we can.
10.
That one was rough. Definitely not my best landing. What would I say? Any landing you can reuse the airplane from is a good one, right? Not the best, but I'm sure this airplane will live to fly another day. So, gust lock on. Let's bring the flaps up. Radar we left off again because we can't use it anyway. Trims are good. We gotta wait for the landing lights. TRU can go off, and probe heat can go off as well. Where we want to turn is right up here. Just a little bit more power. Now we can turn our landing and strobe lights off. Let's get slowed down just a little bit. And then I didn't reset that well, so we want to wait right about probably a minute, minute and a half before we shut down, before we feather engine number 1 and 2. Just give them time to cool down from our flight. And let's see where we're going to park today. I like to park at that gate right there, but clearly that's taken already. I mean, that one's going to open up, but that's not going to help us right now. Let's see. What if we did that one right up there? This guy right here. Let's do this one. Like the looks of this gate. And I've never actually started the chrono when I reset it. Sounds about right. Alright, so let's see. So we want to come to about here-ish. Then hook it a little bit too tight there. Let's give it just a little bit more throttle on number 1 for this turn. And a little bit more. Let's slow it down some. Then we want to be about right here. I hope that was a decent park job. So let's go ahead, set the parking brake. Parking brake is set. Bring that down. We'll give it a couple more seconds, and we'll bring both these to feather. Wait for the chrono to say 1 minute. I feel like we've taxied at least 1 other minute. There you go. Let's bring those down into feather. Now I gotta wait 20 seconds, so we'll reset that chrono again. So then the parking checklist. Parking brake is on. Get boost off. Taxi and takeoff light can go. That's the wrong one again. There we go. Taxi takeoff is off. That's in feather. Beacon light stays on until we kill the props. Which there's 20. We're going to be shutting it down today. So on this aircraft, they actually hook things up to, I want to say it's in front of the number 2, so we'll go ahead and stop the number 2 so we can get ground power. Because we're going to be shutting it down for the next crew. So now that we're at the gate, we'll say they got chocks in, they're hooking up the ground power right now. So ground power is available, so go ahead and turn that on. Now we'll shut down number 1. And to shut down, we're just dropping these down to the shut-off position. So then once that prop stops, we can turn the beacon light on. Well, turn the beacon light off, sorry. And there it is. So prop is stopped, so now beacon light can go off. Also, wing and nav can go off because we're not doing the prop brake. Seatbelt signs off. And then now here, we want to go to if leaving aircraft, because that's what we're going to do now. So bring that down, hit enter. So oxygen supply can go to off. There it is. Oxygen supply off. Ice and rain protection off. All we got left is the side windows. External lights. We'll leave nav on. We can go ahead and disarm the emergency lights. Radar is already set to off. Number 2 is set to shut off. Pumps can go off. Go ahead, open the cockpit door, because we're going to get out of the aircraft now. Move that there, open that one. Hop back in our seats to finish everything. Then we'll leave external power and battery on for the next crew, but otherwise, we're good to go. So I'm going to hop outside the aircraft, see how we did, and I'll talk to you in a second. Alright, so, well, it doesn't look like we did a terrible job parking. We didn't do like the world's greatest job parking. We're a little bit forward and a little bit to the right, but not bad considering we just kind of winged it doing it on our own. Well, that's kind of a cool shot. Let's back up so you can see new a little. It's kind of a neat shot. But so with that, I hope you guys have taken something away from this tutorial flight. Let me know what you think of it. I'm sure it probably could have been better, but I don't think this will be a bad video. And I'm really just hoping to get something out for you guys that's more of along my normal videos. I'm hoping to get more out soon, but things are still a bit busy right now with everything I got going on in my life, so we'll see what I can do. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, drop them down in the comments below, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next video. As always, stay classy, stay awesome, and I'll see you soon.